this is Stephanie from Spinsters in the Making blog, and today we are going to be working on the number 33 Sewcialites block. And today we're going to be doing the 9-inch block, and we have a lot of pieces of fabric for this one because it's that sewing machine block. So for the first piece, or for your background, you're going to need one 2-inch by 5-inch rectangle, two 2 by 3.5-inch rectangles, two 2 by 3 3/4-inch triangles, two 2-inch squares. One's going to have a line drawn in it, and then three 1 1/4-inch squares with lines drawn diagonally on it. And then for your print, you're going to need one 3.5 by 5 3/4-inch rectangle, one 3.5 by 4 1/4-inch rectangle, and one 2 3/4 by 9-inch and a 1/2-inch rectangle. And then you'll also need two 2 by 2 3/4-inch rectangles and one 2-inch square for this. So first we're going to be starting off with our A, K, and D fabrics. So our A is the 1 and 2 by 5-inch rectangle, like this. Then you're going to need your K, which is your 2-inch square of your print. And then you're also going to need your D fabric, which is one of your 2-inch squares, the one that does not have a line drawn on it. And you can lay it out like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew a 1/4-inch seam allowance here, and that will make one strip so far for this block. Okay, so I have that first strip sewn, and I've pressed in towards my dark fabric for this. So now that we have that, we can start focusing on our next piece, which is our H fabric, which is the 3.5 by 4.5-inch print. So this one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our little F squares and one of our E squares, which is your other 2-inch block with that line drawn on it. So you're going to take two of these, and have one with the line going this direction on the top of your block, and then also take the bottom block and place it in the bottom corner, the bottom left corner of your block with the line facing this way. So you're going to be cutting off this piece and this piece after you've sewn directly on that line. And then for the E block, which is your 2-inch block, you're going to be putting it on the bottom right side of this block with the diagonal facing this way, so that you're sewing on this line and then cutting this piece off. So for all of these blocks, I'm going to sew directly on that line, cut with a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and press in towards my larger block fabric. And I'll come back to you once I've done that. Alright, so I have finished this piece, and as you can see, I trimmed down to a 1/4-inch seam allowance on these and then pressed in towards my darker fabric. So now we're going to continue with this block, and we're going to get our B and J fabric. So our B and J fabrics are our B and J fabrics are our 2 and 3.5-inch rectangles for our print. They're going to go like this. And then the J fabric is our 2 by 2 3/4-inch rectangles. So we're going to take one of these J fabrics and pop it right up here. So this will be how you're going to sew it on. So I would start off first by sewing this piece on with a 1/4-inch seam allowance and sewing these two pieces together, and then folding this over and sewing with a 1/4-inch seam allowance there. And then the second piece that we're going to be working with is our G fabric, which is your 3.5 by 5 3/4 inch fabric of your print. And then you're also taking the last of your F, which is your 1 1/4 inch square, and placing it right here at the very top of your fabric on your top right corner, with the line going this way, so that way you're going to sew on that line, cut with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and press this out. So I'm going to complete these two and then come back to you once these are done. So I have finished these two pieces. As you see, I've pressed in towards my dark fabric, and I've also put on the rest of this piece and block together. So the last strip that we have to sew together is our J and C fabric. So take your J fabric, stick it in the middle, and then take your two C fabrics, which are your 2 by 3 and 2 by 2 3/4 inch rectangles. Put them together like this. So with a 1/4 inch seam allowance here and here, press in towards your dark fabric, and then we can start putting this full block together. So I've finished my last strip here, and now we can actually start laying this whole entire block out. So first we're going to start with this block right here that has the head and neck of your sewing machine, and then we'll take the body and put it right next to it right here. And then also that last piece that you sewed together, your J and C fabrics, they're going to go over here and become the knob. And then you also have your bobbin piece on top, which will go right here. And then once you have sewn all that together, you add your bottom strip. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew this piece together, and that way that will shrink this down so that this piece will fit nicely. And then we will sew this piece on, and then the last piece that we're going to sew on is this piece. So I'm going to start off with these two pieces and sew those on, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so the next piece I'm going to be sewing on is this piece right here. And we're going to take it and fold it down like this, and then sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then press down towards the sewing body, because that has a lot of more darker fabric than this top piece here, and we don't want it to show through. So I'm going to sew that and come back to you, and we'll sew on this part next. So I finished this top sewing of this piece on, pressed it in towards my sewing machine body, and now we can take the sewing machine wheel and knob and sew that onto this piece right here. So we're going to fold it over, sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then press in towards the body of your sewing machine. And after that's done, then we can add our final piece, which is the bottom and bed of that sewing machine. I have completed sewing on the wheel to the sewing machine body, and now we just have our last piece, which is the bed of the sewing machine. So what we can do now is take this piece, fold it up, match up your corners, sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press in towards this darker piece of your print, and then the block will be complete. So here is the finished number 33 Inspire block for the Sewcialites quilt along. As you can see on the back, I've pressed mostly towards my darker fabrics with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And the reason why I chose kind of a dark blue, a navy blue, is because it kind of reminds me of the old cast iron antique sewing machines. And I originally thought I wasn't really going to like this block, but I kind of actually like it now that it's made, and it reminds me of that. Because I started learning how to sew on my grandmother's old antique Singer machine, and so it just brings back memories. And if you found this tutorial helpful, please like and subscribe so I can bring you more content. And you can also check out my blog, Spinster Station, on the Weebly, which you can find in the link below. And as always, happy quilting!